Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
All right, welcome to the Moving Iron podcast. This edition of the Moving Iron podcast is brought to you by John Deere. I got Jason Cox in here. So I know you guys are used to seeing Machinery Pete here right now, but Machinery Pete fell and cut his face up and has like this whole thing going right now. Looks like he got kicked in the head several times. So Greg, wish you the best, man. I hope you get back into the saddle. Love to have you come back and be part of the Moving Iron podcast again. But right now you're going through the situation that you're going through. So God bless you. Hope you're doing well. Got Jason Cox here with me. Jason Cox, the guy I work with, and Jason Cox is one of those guys that came from outside the industry and came back in, and he has a lot of industry knowledge that's not related to ag. But the cool thing about what you do, Jason, and Jason comes from the automotive side. I'm going to let him talk about what he's doing right there. But as he comes back from the automotive side, a lot of the stuff that he talks about to me, I'm like, that's the same stuff. That's the same stuff we do. Right. So, Jason, glad you could be on, man.
Appreciate you having me, Casey. And I know I don't have 2 black eyes and 23 stitches, so I guess that qualifies me being available for a podcast today.
That's right. That's right.
So, I appreciate you having me. I've known Casey for about 4 years. Met him when he was on our dealer advisory council when I was working for another company. And his fascination with data and the things that he wanted to help his fellow dealers better operate their stores. He and I kind of made a connection with that. I'm the 4th generation, my family on the automotive side. And I sold in automotive retail for a few years before going to work for a company called Autotrader.com. And Autotrader.com was owned by Cox Enterprises, no affiliations. But that was their entrance into the automotive space was with Mannheim Auctions, which probably many of you are familiar with. Over the time I was there for about 12, 13 years, we either built or acquired companies that had developed a lot of different solutions to help people better manage inventory, manage their database, manage parts and service inventory and appointment setting. Because what was happening in our space was consumer behavior was shifting quite a bit. And I know we're talking about B2B and in this equipment space, and buyer behavior is changing there as well. But I started Autotrader in 2008, and the changes that started about a decade prior. And some of those same similarities I'm seeing happen here. What was happening in the late 90s, obviously the advent of the internet changed a lot of shopping, but more than anything, we were dealing with high interest rates. Sounds familiar here. We were dealing with margin compression. Sounds familiar here. And everybody was looking for a better way to become more efficient, basically, and effective with how they manage their operation, because they had to maintain their legacies. A lot of 3rd, 4th generation dealer businesses, much like I'm seeing here in the equipment space. Okay. And that's really where Autotrader got its start. It was started by a guy who worked for a newspaper company and saw an opportunity with a marketplace, and that's how it got started.
Yep. So that's awesome that you laid that out like that. And I think you're exactly right. Margin compression, 100% right. You're looking at interest rates, 100% right, when you're there. So as you look at where we're at today in the used equipment space, and you go back to look at when you're running used equipment locations for dealerships and where you're at now, what are some of the parallels you see right now?
Well, what I see is a lot of dealers trying to figure out, one of the advantages I'm seeing in the equipment space is you have data on your customers. In the consumer space, we don't have that kind of data. Everybody's in the market for a car, but not everybody's in the market for equipment like you guys have. Right. But you guys have you have a good sense of who your customers are. But what I'm seeing is how do we leverage the data that we have to find out who's going to be in market for when, and what are they going to be most interested in, and how do we find homes for, you guys call it the trade cycle, the automotive industry. We were so focused on turn, and I'm hearing dealers in this space start talking about turn more and more. because that was the way for us to maintain high levels of profitability while margins were shrinking, while interest rates are high. We really had to depend on turn to minimize all of our floor plan expenses. In the car business, the average car, we're not talking about the prices we see here in A, the average price when I was in the auto industry was, roughly $25,000. Each parking spot on a lot, if you had 100 used cars in inventory,
Right.
it's costing you $50 a day.
Right.
And the average front end gross on a car back in those times was $1,200 to $1,500. A lot of people think it's higher, but it wasn't
Right.
higher. So if you really think about that, you had less than 30 days
Right.
to sell something before you started losing money.
Right.
And I'm hearing, when I started working in the equipment space, I couldn't believe the number of dealers that had inventory that was 200, 300, 400 days old. And I was, I kept on asking you, like, how are these guys making money? Like, I was trying to understand.
I went like this. Yeah.
Right. And that connected us talking about the things that we had to do, how we became better marketers.
Right.
We didn't spend more money on advertising. We got better at understanding supply and demand. We got better at understanding how we should be priced. What's the competitive set out in the marketplace, and where are we placed? We would look at things like year, make, model, trim, mileage. You guys look at year, make, model, but you're looking at hours.
Right.
That's a big thing. And then then there's a lot of different build factors in your equipment versus cars. So there's a lot of things to swing, but you got to tell that story.
100%. Yep.
And so, we talked a lot about pictures, prices, and comments, and we talked about using tools to understand the supply and data in the market. In our world, we didn't have strict areas of responsibility rules that the manufacturers put on us. Like here, there could be 12 Ford stores within 15 miles of each other.
Yep.
And they all had the right to sell to the same customer.
Yeah.
Here, you deal with other brands, cross competitive colors.
Yep.
Not so much John Deere to John Deere. I know there are some areas, or Case IH to Case IH, or Kubota to Kubota as an example. So we started the dealers that really got smart. So the average dealer at that time had a turn of around 7 or 8 times a year. They started using that data to turn inventory faster, minimizing their days in inventory, which lowered all of their floor plan expenses. They still had to pay commission. They still had, still got to
All the backside stuff.
all that
baby.
stuff is still the same.
The back end stuff, yeah.
But here's the interesting thing: the auto industry turned is transparency. That pricing more towards transaction pricing, we called it,
Right.
Which would be, I think, for you guys more like a cash price, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Not a wholesale or a auction price, but a cash price.
Yes.
We found that actually drove up total gross profit. We started making more money on interest, on financing, on warranties, insurance type products, because it built trust in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that with the relationships you guys maintain with your operators here in this case.
Yep. So what I hear you talking about a lot is cash.
Yes.
Right? Cash is king, right?
That's right.
Right? So
Cash
you're
flow is
talking
king
about
for
how
us.
fast can I turn this into cash, right?
Yep.
And it's the big thing about the equipment side of the business, especially the used side of that, is how fast can I take this X dollar, $400,000 something, and I can sell that to turn that into cash, right?
Yep.
So take that $400,000 something, take your trade in, you get a $400,000 something, you trade it in, it's going to be a $300,000 something. I used to do these models all the time where I would do these integrals of washouts all the way through the line, and I would discount each iteration by 25%, right? So you have a new machine come in at X dollars, so this week, just easy numbers, $100,000.
And not be it.
Well, discount that by 25%, so I got $75,000, right? So the next one comes in at 25% of that, so on and so forth down the line. Where do I get to where I know someone's going to write me a check, right?
Yeah, I would say I know.
The biggest thing on the equipment side, on the used equipment side of the business, as we look at things that are going on now, the biggest thing we look at right now is there's these 1- and 2-year-old machines out there that are just so expensive, right? We're talking $600,000, $700,000, $500,000, $400,000, whatever the number is. And as you work your way down through that, and it always goes down all the way down to like 150 horsepower tractors, where you're looking at $187,000 tractors and $200,000 tractors, so on and so forth. As you work your way down through that, Jason, you came through the auto industry post 2008.
Yep.
Right. That was a big thing on the consumer side of the business. At that particular time, ag was booming. Right. A lot of venture capital money went out of the traditional, Wall Street kind of thought. They put their money into ag. So when I was going through 2008, to me it was like I didn't feel it. Right. Everybody else felt it. Right. So as you're looking at through that process, as you looked at a downturn, how did you guys address that downturn? And what were you doing to stay ahead of that curve as best as you could to make sure that next time I take a trade in, I'm not 25% upside down just because of the shift in the marketplace?
Speed.
Yeah.
It really was speed because valuations on cars were changing at a rapid rate in some cases. So it was all about speed. To go back to turn. The dealers that best took advantage of it were making faster, smarter decisions. Whether that was at the appraisal line, I'm making a decision right away. Am I going to wholesale this piece? Am I going to retail piece? And even the more advanced people were going, okay, I have 16 locations in my dealership group. Where's the best location for this car to be sold? And so they didn't. The old ways were if it came in on trade at dealership 2, it stayed at dealership 2.
Yeah.
And really, that's not the dealership car. That's the owner's car, right? And so where's the best place to not only sell it faster, but maybe can I also make more money transacting with that car?
Right.
And that helped getting the car to the right location, whether that was states away or counties away. And then looking at supply and demand, understanding how many of those cars are in the market, how many of them are selling, because they get access to that data. And then, how do I price it so I can sell this car? And, some dealers will say, I'll hold out for all the money that I want for 7 days. And then on day 8, I got to be more price competitive. I got to put it at transaction pricing and then make another adjustment at 21 days. And because now I know my break-even days in stock, on average, most car dealers were less than 40 days.
Yep. So talk to me, how did you find that number? Right. So I know what I did, right? I looked at auction value, I looked at retail value, I looked at wholesale value, I looked at all the stuff that we had going on. And I came up with a number that said, hey, based on what I knew I could sell to a jockey for, what I could sell to if I took the auction, what it would be for, and what I think I could sell for an auction or retail for. All that stuff came into play, and it got me a retail price, a cash price, and then a book value. And all those three numbers had relevance, right? Yep. They weren't just like some dartboard,
right?
All those numbers meant something.
Yep.
How are you going through that process?
Well, by the time I had gone to work for Auto Trader in 2008, there was a piece of software called vAuto that had been created by a guy who was a second generation automotive dealer. His father had started a Ford Lincoln Mercury store. He was a lawyer by trade, but he was a data nerd, and he thought there was a better way. And he went around to companies like Auto Trader, Cars.com, and gathered up supply, demand data, and I'm sure many of you guys have had conversations like from people with Machinery Pete or somebody over at Tractor House about how many search result pages my inventory had, or how many vehicle detail pages I had, or how many leads I had, and so forth. He gathered up all that information along with auctions. So people were by that time were having online auctions. You could see those values built into the tool and see what cars were going for at wholesale. You could see what supply and demand was. You could see your retail history. And then obviously every good used car manager, used equipment manager has a network of jockeys / wholesalers that partnerships with. As a third course, they called it an exit strategy. And the whole key was he had all that information in one place. I didn't have to look at gobs of spreadsheets. I didn't have to make a lot of phone calls. It was all sitting there. And you can make decisions right as you are appraising the trade on that particular car, or if you were at an auction making a decision, am I going to buy that car at the auction or this car at the auction? You were making all those decisions My great grandfather used to say there's an ass for every seat, but there's more asses for certain seats.
Exactly right. Yes.
And color mattered and all that kind of stuff. Yep. The whole key was having fast, good data and fast access to that data to help you make those decisions on day one.
And the beautiful thing about what Jason just talked about, we're working on that very model today, right? And we're looking at a lot of things. We're taking customer data and we're doing a lot of predictive stuff along those lines. And I think we have a really good model in place that puts us in that position. The thing you talk about, Jason, more than anything is that I hear a lot of people talk about how the equipment space is slowly transitioning into the automotive space. And I've read a lot of Del Pollak's books about what we're doing here. And there's nothing in those books that I haven't followed, that I haven't done, right? And I haven't looked at. And what I'm saying is the biggest difference is there's 365 million people in the United States, yep. Right? All of which are going to drive a car,
yep.
Right? 1% of those people are going to drive a combine.
Yep.
Right? So as you start looking at those things, you put those things together, the biggest thing that you come from is what I've found about used equipment. It doesn't matter if you're talking about cars, combines, or semi-trucks. Doesn't matter. The fundamentals are the same. It's the velocity of which that you go up into those things.
Yep.
That really changes how you look at that, right? So to your point, I got 30 days to sell a car before I'm out of money. Now, I would say on the equipment side of that business, probably the same 30 days. If you really dove into the metrics that are associated with that, you probably got 90 days before you are truly at zero.
Yep.
Right. What you're talking about is the differences in the way that things plug along. They're no different on the automotive side. It's just that on the automotive side is accelerating.
Yeah.
Because of the volume, the percentage of volume that you look at.
Well, they're lower priced items, and you're only making 1 to 2%.
100%.
And you guys, 5 to 10%.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I've got a certain number of days to make something happen, just like you have a certain number of days. To
right.
Oh man.
What I liked about what you're talking about is that there was a place I could go look to where I could say, hey, it needs to be priced this way and for this reason. And I think on the equipment side of the business, it's the same way. It should be priced this way for this reason. And as you look as things move along in where we're at, and the dollars associated with things that are now, and depreciation and those kind of things, there's a lot of moving parts that point towards a more centralized, fundamental view on where the price of equipment's at.
Casey, I've tried to, regurgitate the many conversations we've had about what's the new normal in the equipment space. So you think about the things that you just said there, and you heard me describe what we went through over a 20-year period of time. When you think about the new normal for equipment dealers, what are the applications that you see when you think about true KPIs that you need to, we talk about at our company a lot about leading indicators, lagging indicators.
Yep.
And we're a lot like everybody else. We love to look at lagging indicators.
Oh, sure.
Maybe we don't move as fast on leading indicators, and that's some of the stuff I was talking about that was inside V-Auto. What do you see as critical leading indicators, for the new ag business model that you think that we're in the new normal, as you call it?
I think a couple things. One is so I've had so many conversations. I had one tonight with a guy.
This man boxing.
The percentages of depreciation haven't changed. The dollars associated with that have, right? So you're talking about you buy a $800,000 combine, it's still 25% depreciation.
Yep.
No, you're a smart guy, right? 25% depreciation on a $800,000 something is, you're looking at $250,000, $200,000 worth of depreciation in that one thing. So the conversation that you're having with those customers now is that nothing's changed, Mr. Customer. I want you to feel good about this, right? It's still 25% depreciation. I hope you feel good about that.
Yeah.
It's $250,000 now and not $100,000, $50,000 or $80,000 more than ever, right?
Yep.
That's number one. Number two is velocity, right? I think what I found out about velocity is that there's a norm inside of the ag equipment space where if you keep something for 300 days, that's totally fine, right? There should be no reason for you to think about anything other than I have a 9-month rule, and I've had that rule for a long time. You have 9 months to sell a piece of equipment before your people start to question that piece of equipment. Because if it was good, it would have already sold by now, right?
Yep.
Now, there's all kinds of extenuating circumstances that go into that. It could have been rented. It could have been. There's a million reasons why that's been your sold. So you look at that phase. You start looking at the cash associated with to carry something for 9 months nowadays. That same piece that's talked to you about, that's $900,000, $800,000, $500,000, something. I mean, if you're paying 6.5% interest rate on it, 7% interest rate on that, you're paying $3,500, $4,000, $5,000 a month in interest costs.
Yep.
Well, if you're only drawing $15,000 worth of profit, you have 3 months to sell it.
Yeah, 3 months.
But you haven't paid any sales guys yet.
That's right.
You haven't had any hold. There's nothing in there that does that. So as I'm watching this thing move along, trade cycles are getting longer. The dollars that need to be drawn at the time of sale are bigger.
Yep.
So that means it puts a customer in a different position they've ever been in before. But it also puts the dealership in a different position they've ever been before. So as you watch these things, these nuances take place, that's uncharted water.
Yeah. What's interesting, you just made me think about something that I hadn't really thought about. The uncharted waters piece too is a lot of them in the dealer world, a lot of franchise dealers never gave two thoughts about their used car operation. They were focused on their new and maintaining that relationship with the manufacturer, hitting their volume bonuses. They didn't break it down by trucks or cars or sedans. It was just overall volume.
Right.
They realized that one of their largest profit margins, we know the used department is your number one customer in service where your highest margins are, so you're making great money there.
Yep.
But they didn't realize how much money they were missing out on in their used car departments. And when new wasn't selling at the same rate, because the other thing that was happening, this is what made me think of it, is cars started being made better, which changed the timeline. Leases weren't as popular like they were in the 90s. And so that turn cycle of how often somebody was buying a new car was starting to get lengthened, and they weren't making as much money on warranty repairs or slightly after warranty repairs. They had to find different revenue streams. That was another thing that pointed them towards used cars, and making sure that we weren't just stuffing all of the money in our used cars to get new car deals,
right?
To get volume bonuses.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Right. I just see a lot of common areas, and I'm still new, trying to get more of a PhD in what our used equipment managers have to deal with every day, and our heads of sales and owners in the equipment space. But I see a lot of similarities, and I think there's tools that are going to come to market really quick. Hopefully, with your assistance and your understanding. And we talked to several dealers last week about what we were thinking about, and we saw a lot of light bulbs going on.
Right.
That they were saying, I think there's a different way for us to look at it. I think you can help us make smarter, faster decisions. And, the beautiful thing is I think dealers in the equipment space have more valuable data of their own that they've acquired for decades.
So much data, dude.
Car dealers didn't have that.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's the repeatability of that customer, right? How many times do you have a customer? If you sold a car to the same guy twice, how rare was that?
Thanks.
Not so rare in the 80s, before the 1990s.
Right.
Less rare since the 1990s, because we all know loyalty's down.
Sure.
People are just not as loyal as they used to be.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
And they have access to more information.
100%. That's the other side of it too, is that the internet has made it a very small world. I remember when I was a kid going to auction with my grandpa. If you lived, even when I first started doing this in the early 2000s, the world that you lived in from an ag space was about 100-mile radius, maybe 200-mile radius at the tops. And that was the world you lived in. And you see cell bills come in from everybody else. But once the internet started coming in and you started putting stuff online and this, that, and the other thing, and advertising machines from everywhere else, that 200-mile radius thing just got blown out the water.
Yep.
It just disappeared real quick. So
one last thing I would leave with regards to that too is the other thing that shifted with all of that. Margin compression is happening. People have more access to information, and you have to get more price sensitive with your inventory. You've got to also enable your salespeople to be able to hold on price.
Yep.
You can't get the same discounts that you were doing before.
Right.
And you have a customer base that was used to hard negotiating. Start high, you go low,
Right.
work your way in.
Yep.
And if you're now more towards transaction prices, you have very small margin to give a win to your customers.
Okay.
We had a saying, documentation is the new negotiation. You've got to
Right.
arm your salespeople with documentation with their customers to help ensure them that, I'm not giving you 20 grand off this time, but you're still getting just as good of a deal or maybe a better deal than what you would have got when you bought something from me 5 years ago.
that's funny you put it that way. I just now thought about this. One of the guys that I learned the business from was an old Army guy. I think he was an Army guy. We talked about bracketing. And what he was talking about was, if you are mortarman, you bracket, right? You shoot one long, you shoot one short, then you know where you are in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, you got to bracket these guys and figure out what the bracket's at. You're going to win every time.
Yeah.
And that was the way. That was one thing that really stood out to me then. So, Jason, appreciate you being on. Good place to stop.
Okay.
Really, really appreciate you being on. Awesome. Thing about this is, it's not that different. It's just it's a different shade of green for grass, right? That's really what it comes down to, right?
Well, you know how much I admire you and your care for this industry. And, when I was an automotive and auto trader, I cared about protecting legacies, just like my family had a legacy. I see that same passion and enthusiasm for you. So appreciate you giving me my version approach with you on the moving iron, because I know it means a lot to a lot of people out there in the equipment space. So thank you.
Well, you taught me why clicks matter, dude. So I appreciate it, man. All right. Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a deer.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. We got Tanner and Theo to talk about what's happening in the world with ag and ops. Tanner, how you doing, bud?
I am great, Casey. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you. Sorry I
Yeah,
can't
good to
be
see you
there in person.
Yeah, I'm down here at Commodity Classic and kind of working our way through a few things. And I thought, you know what, no better time than to bring on man, the myth, the legend, Tanner MP to talk about what's going on in the world. Because you seem to know quite a bit about what's happening, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And so if we take a look at a few things that are happening right now, one of the big things that's on my mind right now as we start heading into planting season is how many acres are going to go to what. And we've had a lot of conversations about the struggles with soybeans early, but if you talked about before we started recording, on paper, soybeans kind of point to a winner. You've got a lot of carry out right now on the inside, and if you look where that's at, it is. conversations that I'm having with other guys around the country, you keep hearing we're going to plant more corn acres, and we start looking at what's going on with cotton, for example. A lot of cotton acres have had some conversation around them that they may switch over to corn. So I guess as you're looking at the marketplace right now, as you start looking at planting season 2026, what do you think the mix is going to be, and what are some of the apprehensions you have about the coming planting cycle to 26?
Well, as it stands right now, Casey, you just have to look at the easiest market indicator, and that's the price ratios between soybeans and corn. It's clearly favoring soybeans. Soybeans have had a pretty good run here. And there's a whole lot of reasons behind that. We still have the renewable fuel build out in the US with expanded crush capacity still yet to come online. Okay, so right there is a very positive factor for soybeans. We did have a recovery somewhat in exports. There's this expectation that China is going to continue buying some more soybeans from the U.S., irrespective of the fact that Brazilian offers are cheaper. It's assumed that the Chinese still want to continue maintaining a good political relationship with the United States, despite the Supreme Court's ruling on the IEPA tariffs that said that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. But it appears as though the Chinese still are in the game buying from the U.S. We'll see what happens longer term. But these are fundamentally positive things for soybeans. And then also, Casey, when it comes down to choosing a crop rotation, choosing which crop to put in the rotation, which crop right now is the friendliest on the budget. If you're sitting at your banker's desk and your banker says, I don't like this level of debt that we're getting in, is there another crop here that reduces your cost? Soybeans is the natural go-to. It costs less than corn. Other crops are even cheaper, like wheat. But soybeans really on the price ratio, on the price performance, is really the obvious one to go to. Okay. So for a whole lot of reasons here, we see soybeans picking up a lot of acres. We came out with our forecast a couple weeks ago, calling for soybean acres to be 86 million acres this spring. It's a little bit more bullish than what USDA had. USDA at the Ag Outlook said 85. We think it's 86. Last year, it was only 81.2. Okay. So we're in line with USDA that we're going to see a swing in acres over to soybeans. The difference in judgment is on the degree. Okay. So let's talk about corn. We had a phenomenal number of corn acres last year, the biggest in a number of decades. And plus, we had a phenomenal yield, national yield, record high, 165 and a half, which is phenomenal. And then we have our own proprietary data, Casey, of all the grain companies in the U.S. They submit their monthly borrowing base report to CoBank that shows how many bushels that they own and how many bushels that are in storage that the farmer owns. And we aggregate that to get together. And we came out with a report a few weeks ago showing that the U.S. farmer has been very reluctant to sell corn, but they've been happy to sell beans. They've been selling beans on the rallies, and they've been ready and willing to part ways with beans. It's been a more exciting run for soybeans, not so much for corn or wheat. So what does that say to us as we head into the planting season? It says that farmers are still dragging their feet on corn. They're not happy where the price is. Do they want to add more corn on top of the corn that they already haven't sold yet? And our bias here is for soybeans to be taking more acres away from corn. Our corn number is at 94 million. That was in line with USDA. A lot of the private forecasters out there were putting acres more like around 95 or even more than that, 96, even 97, I've heard. We're not there. We are on the lower side because farmers are still carrying a huge amount of corn that they have not sold yet, the biggest on record. And the price ratios are indicating that soybeans are the better marketing opportunity versus corn. So nationwide, we're anticipating soybeans to be taking more acres away from corn. And then you have a number of other crops. Grain sorghum, for instance, has not been performing as well in terms of basis out on the plains. Again, that has to do with China. China is the number one market for grain sorghum, and the Chinese are indeed back in the market buying grain sorghum again, but we've still got a ways to go to catch up on sales. We still have piles of milo all across the central and southern plains. And so there's going to be an acreage shift there out of grain sorghum. Some of those acres are going to go to corn, some will go to soybeans. And then in the south, you have rice. Rice prices have really taken a beating over the past year. Of the grain complex, rice is the worst off. Last year, rice prices were down over 20%. Soybean prices were actually up. And so when you get into those southern states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri, in the Boot Heel, you're talking about an area that's very geared towards soybeans, and soybeans are more common than rice even. So we're anticipating a lot of those rice acres to switch over to soybeans. And we're thinking rice is going to come back by about 25%. Some have even said more than 30%. Okay, so soybeans will be picking up those acres. Cotton, we see those acres coming back yet again after another year of last year's big reduction. And being the South, we think again, a lot of those acres are going to be going over to soybeans. Some may go to corn, but really, again, because it's the South, we think the bias is probably going to be towards soybeans. Then you have some other crops like hay. Hay prices are still in the tank. There's no money in hay. And some of those acres are going to be coming out. Some of those acres will go to corn. Some will go to soybeans. Nationwide, we think, though, that the big story is going to be soybeans. The outlier here, Casey, is going to be the northern plains. We're talking about the Dakotas that are very exposed to the Chinese market. It's that Chinese corridor, if you will. The northern plains market was built up to feed Chinese demand. And their basis, although it has recovered somewhat, it is still pretty wide. Okay, so cash basis up in the Dakotas is not favorable. And so that would be the only outlier, Casey, where we see acres actually going to corn. Up in the Dakotas, they've had a couple of good years now with corn in terms of yield. The corn acres just keep moving west. Farmers have had really good luck there. And I think that farmers are now thinking that the genetics are so good that corn works up in the Dakotas like it does in Iowa. And so I think there is an opportunity here for farmers to be switching more acres out of soybeans and over to corn, even if it is two consecutive years of corn on corn. They're going to be biased towards corn just because of the basis on soybeans is so weak, but also because the yield advantage on corn has been impressive. And I think a lot of farmers are going to try that for a third year in a row.
Yep. Okay, so you brought up a good point there. We're talking about cotton. As you look at cotton right now, there's so much there's so much going on right now when you start looking at how cotton fits into the picture. We start looking at clothing manufacturing. There's so much more polyester, nylon mixes, and those kind of things. New stuff coming out all the time as far as fibers and those kind of things go. Do you think long term there could be more soybean acres in the South than there are cotton acres, or what's your thought there as you look at that?
A lot of it also depends on insurance. We've had under OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a change in insurance policy, insurance rates. The government's involvement there in cost going to 90%, and then the base acres changing, and that's going to retain some cotton acres. That's been the insurance story. There is favorable to cotton, so I'm not so certain that we're going to see a wholesale purging of cotton in this country, simply because there is a fundamental floor there in terms of base acres that's going to support cotton. But if it is up to the farmer in terms of trying to find a new source of revenue outside of cotton, then soybeans would be the more logical choice. There will be some acres that will probably go to corn also. especially if they're in the Southeast and they've got a hog market nearby or poultry. Perhaps there might be an opportunity there in a local, if you have a local market, a local buyer for the corn. But because soybeans perform well in the South versus corn, it's probably going to be biased to corn. Excuse me, versus soybeans. But corn does have an opportunity in some local areas, so I wouldn't completely count that out.
Yeah. So let's talk about proteins real quick. We're looking at this, and I know you bank follows and stuff real closely. You're the grain guy, so I'm kind of picking on you here a little bit. But when you look at, I look at the current state of the cattle marketplace, and I'm looking at the aging population of the rancher that's out there now, and the number of folks coming back that are going to come back into cattle operations. It's like anything else. There's a lot of those operations that aren't going to have folks come back in. I look at it from the perspective of a lot of guys are at the tail end of their career. They're not willing to throw their chips back on the table one more time. Because most of these guys have probably been through 5 to 7 busts, depending on how you look at it, and 5 to 7 peaks in price, depending on how you want to look at it. And as you watch that thing move through, they just came out of one. They're tail end of the career. There's nothing out there pointing towards a big resurgence in growing the herd back because of why pairs and calves are what they're cost right now. So if you're watching that take place, as I look at the kind of the tea leaves right now, I don't see a situation where the cattle market is setting itself up to be back into a growth cycle until something happens with feed corn and feed and those kind of things, and what the price of feed looks like to bring the price of cattle down to where you can start looking at some regrowth. As you look at that, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you think that plays out over the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, our animal protein analyst, Brian Ernest, talks about this, and it sounds like from his analysis and from what we hear from out there in the industry, it's going to be a little while yet before we see a serious rebuild in the herd for all those things you just talked about. Do you want to take money off the table now? The record high cattle prices is pretty enticing if you've got a heifer and you have the option of holding that heifer back and breeding her and waiting 2 years for her to drop a calf and send that calf to market. That's 2 years from breeding all the way to market of that calf. That's a long ways to wait when the market's paying you right now.
Right.
And at the same time, you've got very cheap feed and hay prices, so your margins are pretty good. And it's going to take a lot for that rancher to say, you know what, I'm going to forego today's big margins on hopes that this calf, the heifer that I breed today, is going to be producing calves that are worth more money down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to be giving up. It takes somebody who's got a long view of staying in the industry in order for that to pencil. And if you just said it, Casey, if you don't have a generation behind you ready to come up and take over management of the ranch or the cow-calf operation, then it's a harder sell for that rancher to say, yeah, I'm going to hold that heifer back. So I think there's a number of things slowing the delay in the rebuild of the herd. You also have screwworm down south of Texas, which is restricting the amount of cattle coming into the U.S. from Mexico. That's tightening the herd as well. But in terms of how long is it going to take to rebuild the herd, it's going to be a couple of years from what I understand. The life cycle of the animal is just so long. It's not like chickens.
Right.
Remember when we had record high egg prices?
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Right.
That problem went away pretty quick. Perhaps maybe, we wished it was faster, but it happened really fast. We now have egg prices in the tank because of the cycle. How long does it take for a chicken to hatch and then get to breeding to laying eggs? It's a few weeks, and you're in business. So eggs are different. Or the same thing with broilers. The life cycle of the chicken is different from the life cycle of the steer. So I think here we're really got to take the long-term view here, Casey, because these are generational issues with ranchers, and the life cycle of the animal is so long. So it's going to be a few years yet before we start rebuilding, and that means we're going to continue to have strong cattle prices. But we forgot to talk about the consumer here.
Right.
The consumer isn't giving up either. The consumer just won't quit beef. It's ridiculous. Rather than quitting beef, they're trading down to cheaper cuts of beef. Some of that is spilling over into pork, and you can see that reflected in pork or hog prices in the pork cutout. But the consumer just will not let go of beef. It is the preferred protein, and I'm sure when you're down there at the Commodity Classic and you're going out to the restaurants, Casey, are you going to have a chicken breast? Or are you going to have a ribeye?
Really? Yeah.
You know what I'm
Ribeye,
saying?
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
entirely different experience. The consumer experience for beef is on a different level. And that's why consumers are not letting go of it. Consumers demand that experience that the other proteins don't offer. So that's the other side of the equation here. And if they can't have a ribeye, then they're going to have the New York strip. If they can't have the New York strip, then they're going to have maybe a T-bone. Something, you know what I'm saying? They're going to trade down. They're not going to necessarily quit beef. They're just going to pick up different cuts of beef. Flank steak. They're going to go all the way down to hamburger, but they got to have that beef, right? So that's part of this equation too. Is that demand is not slowing down. The consumer has simply made their vote. We love beef, and we're going to stay. So now on the production side, it's a question of how long it's going to take, and it's going to take a few years yet before we get a serious rebuild.
All right. So you brought up poultry. So we got to talk about black swans. As you're looking out there across the spectrum right now, we got this possible war with Iran that we keep talking about. We're moving various carrier groups, all the different stuff over into the Middle East.
Yeah, Middle East. That's always a tricky one, right? Has anyone ever been able to predict the Middle East with any accuracy? That's in the worst case scenario. Let's say, as you mentioned, we're watching that because we've got aircraft carriers parked outside of Iran, and most of the world's oil trade flows through the Strait of Hormuz, right there in that pinch point next to Iran. And so, if there were to be a military engagement with Iran, that it escalates beyond just simply bombing them like we did last year, because remember it was the Israelis that attacked Iran, and then we came in and we bombed that nuclear facility. And then we were out, and it was story done, done and over. And energy prices hardly even budged. Well, now is this different? Okay, we've got aircraft carriers parked outside of Iran. What is this all about? Where is this staging something, or is this simply a theatrical show of force to try to convince the the Iranians to capitulate and hand over the government uh, in a regime change where no one dies, where no Americans die. Right now, there's tens of thousands of Iranians that have died, unfortunately. But what this means is the regime is quite unstable. Okay, they are not on solid ground right now. So maybe what this is simply doing, maybe what the Trump administration is doing, is simply taking this vulnerable situation and using it by applying a little of force and saying, "Hey, we've got some aircraft carriers parked here, and so you need to do something. Otherwise, we'll do it for you. We're going to change the regime for you." Now, does this transpire into U.S. American soldiers with boots on the ground? That's a whole other story. And I don't have any thoughts on if that's even possible. I would venture a guess if you were to ask me what my over under is on that. If I were to put a percentage on that, I'll call it 20%. I don't think it's high. I think this is a show of force. But then again, remember Iraq? We had we had a lot of we were doing the same thing. We staged a bunch of ships outside of Iraq, and then we invaded.
Yeah.
So don't look at me for answers here, Casey.
You haven't got
I
you
don't
haven't got
think
the
it's going to
invite yet,
happen. But as soon as you say it'll never happen, that's when it happens.
for sure. All right, Tanner, good place to stop there. You have a lot of research over at CoBank. If folks want to find that research, what's the best place to go do that?
They can find us on our website at cobank.com and just find the Knowledge Exchange tab, and you can find our research where you can sign up.
Well, Tanner, appreciate you being the podcast. Hope we talk again soon, and safe travels to you wherever you may be headed as the year comes along.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. Anytime.
All right. Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you.
See you next year, loser.
That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like Exact Apply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, got Aaron Phillip back on to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Aaron, how you doing today, bud?
I am doing fairly well today.
Good. We were talking about this before we started recording and just kind of thinking about what we were going to talk about and working our way through it. And the thing that we kept coming back to is that it hasn't gotten any worse, but it hasn't gotten any better either. So just because it hasn't gotten any worse doesn't mean it makes it feel any better, right? So as you're kind of working through this, I know you get a million phone calls a day, kind of talking guys through what they see happening with their equipment and kind of some stuff they should be doing. And what are a couple things as you look at the marketplace right now? If you're in the market to buy something, what would you be talking to somebody about right now?
Oh man. What it feels like across the country with other dealers, us, just, the pulse on what's going on. Nothing is a runaway by any stretch. It feels like once we got, what was that, 2 years? Yeah, I want to say 23s. Because everybody ordered them in 21 and they finally showed up in 23. Planners. 24-row planners are far more interest than they have been. I would say, and we talked about this about a year ago. I state dealers I'm buddies with, 24 rows been a struggle, big time struggle. They kind of had that 2014 all over again in pockets of the Midwest where everybody came and got a new planter at once, and then the lot's full of planters, and then, oh man, now what? Or rolling 1-year-old planters, that kind of thing. And we out here, we do so many, I shouldn't say so many different configurations. There's two. There's 3-pointer pull type, but amongst the pull type, you're going to have, we still got a decent, economy fold 1760 base in your 12 rows. We got plenty of 24-year standard 24-row pull type planter, semi-mount, 2-point hitch, whatever you call it. And the bread and butter for us and 3 other states is the stack fold. So given that we do so many of those and we've got stack folds from 12 to 24 rows, lots of 24 rows, actually, DR24s, we never get too much of a slug at one time with planters, which is beautiful. Everybody runs a Class 8 combine. That's a whole different deal. But when your planters are, even take a 16 row 3-point planter. We sell 3 different versions of that. There's your 1725 stack, 1725 stack CCS, and then you go to your DR planters. And we do a boatload of DR planters, Deere Orthman. So I mean, you could have a 16 row planter and it could be 5 different configurations. At times, that isn't the best thing because they get hot in groups through the years. And always one of those is a redheaded stepchild at some point. And why, never have figured out. But most likely because it was the last hot wave. So everybody that everybody that wanted one got one, and here we are. But we've seen, or at least I've seen, 24 rows, late model low acre 24 rows having some popularity. The 8Rs, which I know you and Greg talked about, the firming up of that market toward the end of last year. You and I talked about it a little bit. And it does seem to be there. There's still plenty of those tractors on the market. As we've also talked, it's a great thing. There's not 10,000 25s coming, but there's still a somewhat realistic market there, is what I would call it. Obviously, given cattle market, things related to that are moving very well. Loader tractors, for us, it's the, say, 140 to 200 horse loader tractor has been pretty good. Haven't seen, windrowers, used windrowers have had a pretty good swing here lately. Must be irrigated, guys, because we have no moisture at all. So there's the way you opened it, Casey, was spot on. Nothing has gotten any worse, but nothing's gotten any better. That what I would say is better is there's been enough flushing the last couple of years where now you're in you can at least hold all of the balls in the net. They're not spilling out, but the net is awful full. That's how I would look at it. So plus there's so much. I mean, one day Trump's doing this and the next day Trump's doing that, and global unrest and what's going on over here and what's going on over there. And it's just constant flutter of nothing good. None of that is like, ooh, what if this happens? Right. So other than the big, beautiful bill everybody's waiting on bridge payments for. So
yeah,
make that out to 21st century equipment, please.
Yeah, that's the that's the hard part right now. You look at all the stuff that's happening and the payments that are coming. Fortunately, they're gonna just kind of hem up a few things and not actually, inject cash back into the farming operation.
No, and that's just it. It's not going to be let me think of it. Like when we did like the CFAP or PPP.
Right.
That was at the end. We didn't know it was the end, but that was at the end of a just steady, a lower but very, very steady market with it was just starting to tick up, 19-ish right in there. Mm-hmm. CFAP and PPP, because they were at their timing, that insulated shops, that poured concrete, that did a lot of extra stuff. It's like those checks were literally, we've always wanted to do this, but just never have allocated the money and, can't justify it out of operating. But, done. There was a lot of that went that way. There was a lot of, hey, we can use this to we know they want to trade for this. We need this much down. Hey, if we use this, we roll right into that, and then we're away. There's plenty of it used on machines. And then we go to today, and it feels like every penny of that is just going to go to a note somewhere for something.
Yeah.
You know, it's already spoken for like 3 times over.
Yeah.
Give me.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
which in a way, I mean, it's money that wasn't there before, so that's great.
Right.
But and it'll solidify his operation to then maybe look at the combine, the tractor, the planter, whatever. So it's, you know, it's just because it's not going there isn't the end of the world, because he's got to have him fixed or there won't be anything.
Yeah.
Or he sells out and then you got more machines on the market.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough spot. That is a tough part. So on the flip side of that, now we've talked, if you're wanting to go out and sell a piece of equipment that you're working at, and we've talked a lot about it here, conversation guys have had about, hey, I want to take my 6 tractors down to 4, or my 4 tractors down to 2, or I got 3 combines thinking about taking it down to 2. If you're working with a guy that says, hey, I want to just sell this machine I have, unless I want to add one back to the fleet, what's some advice would you have about that?
Okay. The biggest thing I would say is get every single shop ticket that you can find on it. Okay. Greg has a saying that is one of the best sayings on earth for the private seller. And it's something that only they can do. Tell the story. The story will sell it. Tell him the whole story. We got this tractor down here and we bought it down there. We got this down at Heritage because they were cheaper than they were at Platte Valley. And we looked at 21st and we looked at HW, and this is the one we got. And here's why. And it came from this guy over there, and he did this and this and this, and then we got it. And here's every green light in the winter, and here's the hydro pump on the IVT, and do that.
Right.
Wash it, clean it up before you take pictures. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here. You can never have too many pictures. Guys only look at 10.
Right.
I can't tell you all day long. I get, hey, do you got a picture of, yeah, it looks like picture 26. Oh, well, I didn't look. I'm like, yeah, there's 40 pictures on there.
Right.
Make sure it's clean, get your good pictures, and tell the story. And regardless of what it is, if it's a planter, it's got this many acres on it. It's got this many acres since we did this many acres since we did this. The combine, you know, we did this and we did that. Just tell the story. That's if you're willing to sell it yourself, which I love trade-ins. Guys trade everything into me, but I can't fathom trading anything in. Of course, what do I do for a living, right? A kicker can't imagine going for it on 4th and 1 at the 30, you know, kick the field goal, man.
Right. Yeah.
But because of that, you are untouchable. I mean, you really are. And they don't ever look at it that way. They always like, I don't know how to sell. I don't know what I'm doing. Buddy, we're not writing an ad in the back of the High Plains Journal anymore.
Right.
Guys are going to click make, model, hours, whatever, boom, hit search.
Right.
Be there. That's it. Be
Right.
there. Be in. My biggest thing is do some pricing research.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not think just because you want that for this tractor means it's worth that. Now, you might be completely right that, well, they're giving me this and I think we can get another 15. I bet you might. You're not hauling it. You're not taking it in the shop. You're not doing this. You're not paying for the sign on the front of the building and everything else that is there.
Right.
So yeah, you can undersell me. You can tell the story that I can't tell as good, because whatever you tell me, even if I record the whole story, 3 calls later, oh, that's right. In '04 we did blah, 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 that I don't know.
Right.
So the story is enormous, such a big thing. Just like when, Greg does his tractor tales segment. That's all that is. That's not even about the tractor. It's the story.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Big Iron does their legacy project. That literally has nothing to do with iron. It is the story.
Right.
Tell that story, but that research is big. If I have an 8,000 hour 2010 A345R, I would love 175 for it. And people in hell want ice water. So neither's going to happen. And I know it's the dirtiest word selling, but their favorite word buying. Look at auction value. Look at advertised, and be aggressively in between.
Right.
If that fits wherever this is and wherever this is your playground.
Right.
Be under this, be over this. You're golden.
Yep.
If you can tell the story. If you got a tractor that's, they're only giving me this because such and such is wrong, it's still wrong. That's if it's dripping out the blow by or whatever, that didn't go away. That's still there, So some of that, if it's the other thing, if most guys, there's plenty of guys out there that is a tool and a commodity, to use my buddy's favorite word. And there's plenty of other guys that, no, I bought that 7810 when my grandson was born that same week, and then we went and got it, and his first picture was in front of the steps on that, and there's that tractor that don't ever trade that thing in. The only one who's ever going to maximize that is you. Same thing, and you typically see it. Guys will throw them on an auction or, because they make such a splash. But I have seen from time to time where guys will trade that. And if you don't want to deal with it, I get it. I get it 100%. It's not for everybody. But the unicorn, don't ever trade a unicorn. I got a 2,500 hour 8430 ILS power shift. Don't trade that. Sell it.
Mm-hmm.
That's you selling that versus trading it. That's a few loads of corn involved.
Right.
Look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's just, whereas conversely, I got a 3-year-old 8R370 with 800 hours. Trade it. Don't jump into the pool of that splitting hairs. Just
you got to understand what the market looks like and what you're doing there.
Right.
I would say one thing too about that, when you're going through the process of getting machine ready that you want to sell, the picture thing is very important. It's really, really important. But I want you to think about it from the perspective of, if I were buying this tractor like this, what do I want to make sure that I see? If I could add in information, what are the things I want to look at, right? How good is the cab pictures, right? Most time I see like they just kind of got a picture of the cab, and it's just take a picture of the seat, take a picture of the control arm, take a picture of the steering column and the gauges and everything. When it turn everything on and let the lights come on, do all those things. Take a good picture of the number of SEVs in the back. Take a good picture of the tires. Don't use your finger, use a ruler, right? Tape measure, something like that. Those kind of things where you really dial in what you're looking at. And like Aaron said, there's some merit to taking pictures of a tractor that's dirty, and there's merit to taking pictures of machines that are clean. the dirty picture should be, hey, this is what it looked like before I cleaned it, because I take really good care of my stuff even during season, right? Don't take the picture where you got 14 Coke bottles laying on the floor and there's tobacco spit on the window. Like, don't take that picture, right?
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is really dialing in what it is.
If it's a loader tractor, don't take that working picture.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I think
only do those cleaned up. What's that in the corner? Oh, 6 balls of net wrap. Don't worry about that.
If you think about it, what you'd want it to look like if you were going to buy it, and put that in perspective. And I know that sounds very elementary, what I just said to you, but you'd be amazed at the pictures that we look at and they come through for guys that want us to buy a machine from them, right? And then they're wondering why we don't give them much money for it, because it looks like you haven't done a thing to it since the day you picked it up off the lot. Right.
Right.
That's
one thing you mentioned there. I'm against it on the dealer side, and it drives me crazy. But the work clothes picture. Okay. As a dealer, I hate it. We have some of our guys love to leave it in there because that's what it looked like. This is what it looks like now. Okay, I know how we operate. It probably got washed, and now it's sitting on rock instead of on grass. So,
right,
like just use the new pictures. This is our tractor. That was his tractor. See, There's the story. That was his tractor. This is our tractor. Okay, different tractor, combine planter, whatever. But to your point, if you're selling it yourself, yeah, that's a great. Hey, it's May 10th. I'm finishing up beans. I've been planting with this thing for a month, and I'm going to we already know we're going to sell it and update this fall. So, it's 10-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever, but get trash out, but still work clothes is a great picture. Not your main selling pictures, but say you got 20 pictures on there, 4 or 5 work clothes, and then the rest, hey, we washed it up, we serviced it. See there, the white pin on the filter, we wrote the hours, and that's a neat angle for part of that story as well.
But only do that if you're the guy that's. I've had plenty of customers that at the end of the day, when they got done running the combine, got the air compressor out and blew the machine off, right? And did that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, planting, they blew all the dust off the tractor, right? They blew all the dust off in the back where the SUVs were at, so it wasn't a big giant mess at the end of that. On the flip side of that, you don't need rear wheel weights because there's enough grease and oil collecting dust out of the back of the tractor that it's caked on so much that it replaces one whole wheel weight, right? I mean, you don't. If you're one of those people that are anal retentive about cleanliness with your machine, show that, hey, during the season, this is how good I take care of my tractor.
Right.
If you're not that guy, don't take that picture, right? But only if you're that guy, right? So, show that picture because again, it comes.
The guy who puts a piece of carpet over the floor mat in the cab.
That's a great example. That guy, right? Yes. Still got the plastic on the seat. That guy. Yep. Those are the kind of things that
don't unfold that buddy seat. We've never done that.
No one's set there yet, so you don't get to. But that kind of stuff is what really tells the story about a piece of equipment. And the more that you can do that, the better opportunity you're going to sell for maximum amount of money.
Absolutely.
You just throw it out there. You're one more in the sea of however many that you're trying to compete against, and put a life vest on your machine and let it rise to the top so people can see it. And I think if you do that, take some videos of doing whatever, going around, do whatever, take some videos of it, run it, and put that out there too. But again, stand in front of the camera and say, this is a tractor we bought back 10 years. Here's if you're interested, here's all the stuff we've got. And you got a folder stuff or whatever it is, and put that out there because again, I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm trusting what you give me, and I can only go as far as the evidence that you give me that it is worth what it's worth.
Right.
And if you want maximum dollars for your machine, you better have maximum reason why it's worth that much. And that's really what it comes down to. So.
Nope, that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, I do. Good place to stop. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information about High Plains Wholesale. What's the best way to do that?
Well, you can catch High Plains Wholesale on Facebook and TikTok. My social media, I share the same videos, video specials. What do you call that? If it's just a picture, static ads as well, other than video and static. There we go. Static ads as well. My socials, just my name on everything, Facebook, LinkedIn, X. So that's where you can find me, or you can call me or text me, 308-760-1193.
Right on. Casey Seymour, you can find me Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, I think maybe. And you can also go to over on AgWeb under the podcast section. You can find the audio version of this podcast. You can also go to the Farm Journal YouTube page. You can find it here as well. And if you're a subscriber to Farm Journal TV, you can watch this there as well. It's on there as well as, and you can binge watch it. So all the episodes are there. So check it out. If you are going to Commodity Classic this week, I'll be there. Me and Greg Peterson will be wandering around, so look us up. Love to have a chit chat with whoever wants to come by and say hi. And but I also want to say thanks to Greg and Aaron and Tanner Emke for being on this edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour. Let's go to some iron, folks.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.